This is the story of the emergency years of 1948 to 1960. All right, a story of 12 years of conflict between government forces and the communist terrorists, or better known as Charlie Tango. All right, immediately after the war, 1945, the British came back. Okay, to put in place to do, you know, what they left off, yeah, before this Japanese occupation. All right. So they started these rubber estates, planting rubber and operating tin mines, and got Chinese workers and Indian laborers to start to work in the plantations and tin mines to get the economy going. But things were not going that smooth. The economy was in shambles. The people were suffering immediately after the war. Things were expensive, you know. They couldn't put. Work was scarce, and there was a lot of civil unrest. There was this group, a former MPAJA militant group, who took part, in the victory march in London, and they fought the Japanese. It's a Malayan, uh, yeah, against the Japanese, and later on they reformed themselves into this Malayan National Liberation Army (MNLA) to fight for the liberty, independence from the British. All right. So the BMA, of course, had to suppress them, the civil rights. And because of this, they fled into the jungle and committed a lot of crimes, destroying public property and yeah, sabotaging infrastructure, railway, roads, buildings for a few years, and even started a riot. But things came to a head in 1951 when three Europeans were murdered. They were Arthur Walker, 50 years old, Enfield Estate, June the 16th, 1948. All right, he was just after his rounds in the estate, roll call, he came back 8:30. Two men came on bicycles and said Tabet Tuan. He returned the salutation. And before he could even turn around, you know, he was shot in the head and chest. He died on the spot. Okay, within half an hour, 12 men on bicycles, Chinese, rode to an estate, a neighboring estate, Sungai Siput Estate, and tied up two men, John A. Ellison, 55, and his assistant ID Christian, 21 years old, a young boy, tied them to their chairs. All of us, there were other workers looking on, and the family, they couldn't do a thing. They asked Christian if he had a gun. He replied, none. But within minutes, both of them were shot dead, with the family looking on. But as for Arthur Walker's wife, she was in the market that morning. So that was the tragedy. These three lives were lost. Okay. Okay, they were interned, buried in this Godsley the Acre in Batu Gajah. And every year there is a ceremony for them in Batu Gajah. Okay, that was that. So the planters, were worried about their own safety. They thought that so many people have already died, not just these three were the latest or their own Europeans. But before that, many Chinese and Indians have also been killed. Especially those Chinese who were, conductors. They were shot dead. Rubber trees, burnt, cut down. So they complained to this governor of the Malay States, Sir Edward Gent, who immediately declared a state of emergency. June 28, 1948, the same month, a state of emergency. He was in. They had to go all out, you know, to fight the communists. All right. So later on, they also got forces, from the other Commonwealth countries like Australia, Fiji, and New Zealand. They have got fighters from there as well to join in the fight, apart from their own, army. So they had to, because the communists were tricky, so the jungle was the hideout, the thick, dense jungle was the hideout. So it was very hard to get them, really to get them. Then one thing, yeah, one day there was even a bigger event, not bigger event. So it was in 1951, 51, when the High Commissioner, High Commissioner Sir Henry Gurney was going up to Fraser's Hill, his weekly retreat, you know. So I had a photographer friend who was working then. He was the advance party. They had to, photographer, they had to go one day ahead to settle things or set things up for the visit, for his weekend retreat. But he was not shot at. Okay, so this what he told me. I had a story from him as well, Mr. Wong. Okay, anyway, Sir Henry Gurney, his entourage took the corner at the sharp corner. Story has it, his escort, the car broke down and they had to lag behind. It was not intentional, it so happened. So as Henry Gurney's car neared the sharp corner, the, a volley of shots came from the top, you know, bullets, hail of bullets. Gurney came out of the car of his Rolls Royce and he died in the hail of bullets. The wife was in the car, uninjured. So his bodyguard was also injured. But Sir Henry Gurney died on the spot. Had he not come out, he would have survived. I don't know why he came out. The car now, the Rolls Royce, it seems, is in the museum in Penang. Check it out. Anyway, that was that. A high commissioner assassinated. If a high commissioner of that stature can be assassinated, what more the common people? So everybody panicked. So there was a lot of, fear. The spread across the town. Of course, people were arrested, they interrogated, they checked the hill. Actually, in reality, the ambush party was up in the hill for quite some time, you know, taking notes, you know, and yeah, before they 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 got their target. All right, that was that 9:55. So anyway, the fight, went on unabated until one day, Jinping, thought it was he was not getting any headway. There was no fruition in his campaign. So he sought a referendum. He sought to negotiate with Tunku Abdul Rahman, about amnesty. Tunku, they met in Baling 1955. Jinping came with, uh, this Maidin, Tianqian, yeah, and then Tunku side, the government side with the court, Field Marshal Tan Cheng Lock. Okay, so but the talk was a failure because Tunku didn't accede to his demands. So so Jinping went back into the jungle. They were given, escorted back into the jungle. I have been to the place, Baling Secondary School. I mean, English school. The tables were still there. I have plenty of pictures. We'll tell you a different story. Okay, so Jinping went back into the jungle, back to Thailand. Okay, and the fight continued. Well, it was not until, yeah, 1958 that there was another clash between the government forces and and the communists. All right, but during that time, you saw Sir Harold Briggs, the director of operations. Sir Harold Briggs came up with a plan, which was quite successful during the Boer campaign, Boer War, 1902. It was known as the Briggs Plan. What they did was to resettle villagers, put them in settlement, segregated them from their common place, the normal place. The idea was to keep the citizens in, and lock out the terrorists to stop them from getting help from the sympathizers. So at first they were not contented. They were unhappy, the villagers. And later on they got used to it because there was central cooking, right? So rice was cooked, according to family and distributed according to family members. It went on. So life became very comfortable, and there were so many villages all over the country, resettled, all fenced up with floodlights, with barbed wires, and in and out, you have a lot of checkpoints in and out, central cooking. And all right, you have this kind of, sentries watching them. So they're quite safe. Of course, later on they could come out and tap rubber, but the terrorists couldn't do anything. After all, they were just tappers. They didn't hold anyone to ransom, So the communists had nothing to eat. They fled further in the jungle. So the thing was very successful. The new villages were successful. There were 450 all over the country, and now they have all this new township, and even so when Sir Gerald Templer took over from St. Henry Gurney, he had a strategy, a plan. He even offered, safe passage to the communists if they come out, surrender. And even land, offered them land, offered them land, just like the villagers who offered land and money when they stayed, in the villages, the houses they stayed became theirs. They had, became their property. So he offered, Sir Henry Gurney offered safe passage for those who would surrender, and land, for them. And there's so many places in the hot areas, land was given, So during my time, I was young, 1950s, Talenson, we would see planes overhead, dropping those leaflets, flyers, asking them to surrender. We were rushing and picking up those leaflets. That was in 1958, or right around that year. A lot of planes flying over. 1958 was the last fight, clash between the cities, the Charlie Tango, and government forces, and many were killed. And the communists surrendered en masse. They surrendered. So many bodies, dead bodies were put at the Padang in the front of the old police station. That's why I remember I was there, but yeah, we were not allowed to go in to look from the fence. So, yeah, I didn't think I saw anything. I was 1958, I could be very young. I remember my father carried me to the on his bicycle. We were there, you know. A lot of people were crowding around. There were dead bodies there. 1958, there was the battle, the big battle in the marshland. After that, many of them surrendered. Well, by and by, the thing ended officially in 1960. Of course, there were still new skirmishes on and off. And even, you know, later on in the early 70s, they even bombed, you know, the national monument, the Tugu, you know. And yeah, they had to repair. They used dynamite. So later by later, the thing, you know, because the communists did not disband, but they became smaller in groups and number, and then many people have already surrendered. Okay, and then things, yeah, quietened down. Malaya, you know, we achieved our independence, and then Xi Jinping knew that, you know, there was no rationale for the formation of the MNLA anymore. There was the rationale because independence had been achieved because they were supposed to fight for independence from British, and that was the objective of the Malaysian Liberation Front. But then we had our independence. So and by, you know, they thin out, and then Jinping so when he stayed in, yeah, he sought refuge in Thailand. But anyway, peace came to our time when the Bangkok Accord was signed in 1989, when the Communist Party disbanded, and peace at last. Okay, that's how it all happened. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.